there are science issues which are important that we want to make sure that we get right because of the consequences. And so I can only tell you that even as we are speaking here today, one of the top scientists in the world, Marcia McNutt, who I brought in to run the United States Geological Survey, is working with a group of scientists to give us our United States of America an independent affirmation of what the spill amounts have been. That is to say, we're not dependent on BP or anybody else to give us that information.
MMS used to stand for Minerals Management Service. It now stands for Misconduct, Mismanagement, and Spills. And there are some who would like to suggest that this is somehow or other the fault of the Obama administration. But having spent the last 8 years supporting the Bush-Cheney administration's deregulation of oil and gas industry and its lax administration over the industry, some are now shocked at the gambling with our environment that was going on in the oil and gas industry's offshore casino. They fail to see any connection between their own drill, baby drill, boosterism for offshore drilling and the current spill, baby spill catastrophe we now face. And some have even questioned the patriotism of pledging to keep your foot on BP's neck until they fix their own mess. But I want to congratulate you, Mr. Secretary, for your very good work in trying to keep everyone focused on solving this problem. The fact is that BP has not been entirely candid and open with the American people about this disaster. Mr. Secretary, initially BP estimated that 1,000 barrels of oil per day were leaking into the Gulf. On April 28th, 2010, a new leak was discovered, and Coast Guard officials pushed BP to increase the estimate of the leak to at least 5,000 barrels per day. However, BP's chief operating officer, Doug Suttles, was initially quoted that day, April 28th, saying that he believed that the flow rate of 1,000 barrels per day was accurate, and that due to its location, we do not believe that this new leak changes the amount currently believed to be released. Yesterday, BP provided me with an internal document dated April 27, 2010, and cited as BP Confidential that shows a low estimate, a best guess, and a high estimate of the amount of oil that was leaking. According to this BP document, the company's low estimate of the leak on April 27th was 1,063 barrels per day. Its best guess was 5,758 barrels per day. Its high estimate was 14,266 barrels per day. BP has also turned over another document dated April 26, which includes a 5,000 barrel per day figure as well. So when BP was citing the 1,000 barrel per day figure to the American people on April 28th, their own internal documents from the day before showed that their best guess was a leak of 5,768 barrels per day, and their high estimate was more than 14,000 barrels that were spilling into the Gulf every day. Mr. Secretary, do you believe that BP was being straight with the American people when they were citing their low-end 1,000 barrels per day estimate and failing to give the full range of the estimates that they had already developed for this spill?
Congressman Markey, let me say that our push on BP has been for them to be transparent, and so what you're seeing today in terms of the Top Kill operation is in part in response to our directive. The relationship between the United States and BP under our laws, as I have said, we direct them relative to important things like transparency and making sure the information is being made available. The quantity is a very important issue for a whole host of reasons, Congressman Markey, and you're right to be focused on those numbers. Because we want to have the United States have independent verification, we have scientists from USGS led by Dr. McNutt and NASA and others who will have these independent numbers, and we will share those with you.
Mr. Secretary, for that first week was there any reason why BP would have a financial interest in underestimating how much oil was leaking?
The answer is yes, because liability does apply with respect to the amount of the oil spill. I will tell you this, that the huge focus on the part of everybody that has been involved is to stop the pollution. And I've been at the Houston Command Center now for 4 different days, including this last Sunday, where I know the energy that is being spent in terms of trying to bring the problem under control.
Yeah, under the Ocean Oil Pollution Act of 1990, any owner or operator of an offshore facility that discharges oil into the contiguous zone is subject to civil penalties of up to $1,000 per barrel discharge, or up to $3,000 per barrel discharge in the case of gross negligence. So for BP, the difference between an estimate of 5,000 barrels, for example, and 14,000 barrels, much less 1,000 barrels per day, could really be the difference between 5 to 15 million barrels per day in fines and 14 to 42 million barrels of oil per day, $1 million per day as a penalty. Mr. Secretary, does the flow rate of the leak have an impact on whether the top kill procedure that BP will try today will be successful? Does knowing the accurate flow rate impact on their ability to be successful?
Let me, Congressman Markey, I think with respect to this Apollo 13 type of project, which is underway as we speak, 5,000 feet below the sea level, that the best of data and diagnostics have been developed, and that is why Dr. McNutt has essentially been camped out there for 3 weeks. Dr. Chu has been there with the team. The labs have been there. And so the exact question on the amount of flow, I can refer to the scientists on it, but I don't think it would have impacted what is happening today with respect to the top kill operation.
Well, BP continues to say that the amount of oil leaking doesn't affect the response, that it doesn't matter. But I think that the American people need to know the true extent of the problem that we are facing. The scientists need to know whether there are other undersea plumes of oil lurking out there in the Gulf, and BP should want to know as well, so that as they are trying to outrun the well with their top kill procedure, exactly how fast the oil is leaking, because that determines what it is they have to do in order to stop the leak.
Congressman Markey, and if I may, Mr. Chairman, because I think this is a very important point, and we have been working on it very, very hard for some time, I would ask the Deputy Secretary to give you an overview of what it is that we are doing to come up with flow measurements independent of BP.